The Ensemble Kérylos was founded and is directed by Bélis, a world-renowned French scholar who's been devoting herself to the study of ancient Greek and Roman music for about 40 years. The only purpose of the Ensemble Kérylos is to bring back to life this music as accurately as possible. What does it mean? It means first that the Ensemble Kérylos doesn't make up the works it plays. It plays only authentic works provided by original scores written down in antiquity on inscriptions or papyri that have come down to us, or handed down by medieval manuscripts. Therefore, don't expect the Ensemble Kérylos to play a Pythian ode by Pindar or a melody composed by Sappho, for example. However famous these composers may have been, there is absolutely no musical work left from them, not a single musical note. We've got the text of some of their works, not their music. When someone claims to play a Homeric hymn, for example, or some music composed by Anacreon, he or she plays in fact a fully modern musical work, even if it's not explicitly mentioned. The same is true of all ancient Egyptian or Sumerian music. No musical note has been handed down from these great civilizations. But it is not a reason why we should make the opposite mistake and reject the possibility to play authentic Greek and Roman music, using the false argument that all the ancient musical works went missing, or worse, that the ancient Greeks and Romans didn't use any musical notation, didn't write down their music, as I heard once concerning the Romans, from the man who leads an Italian group called Sinaulia. All this is completely wrong. The first point is we do have genuine scores from Greek and Roman antiquity. But of course, the fact that most of them are anonymous works doesn't boost sales as much as it would if they were written by Pindar. The second point is that great Roman music was in fact Greek music. It was always sung in Greek, it was composed according to the rules of the Greek musical system, and it was written down using the Greek notation system. The Emperor Nero himself composed all his musical works in that way. And the third point is that thanks to the scientific research, and especially the research conducted by Bélis, we know for sure how to read these scores. And that's a very important point, because it means that when you claim to play ancient music, you cannot do whatever you want. Of course, you have to make choices about how to interpret these works, but it's the same sort of issue as when you want to play the Goldberg variations by Bach, for example. If you listen to two different musicians, you can hear many differences, but you also recognize that it is one and the same work. So let me show you a very clear and meaningful example of that problem. Here is a musical papyrus from Oxyrhynchus with inventory number 4466. Not much remains of this work, as you can see. It's now very short. It's a vocal piece which sings the serene beauty of the cosmos, the majesty of the unexplored infinite, here in Greek, atrigetu, with its stars and constellations, here in Greek, theoria. Another important point is that there are very few musical notes on this papyrus. They're written between the text lines, so the text lines are here, here, and the musical notes are written here, 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 above each text line. For example, this is a musical note. This is the same musical note. This one is a little different and is a melodic ornament, as was recently demonstrated by Anibis. So this work is a profound and meditative hymn to the stars. And yet, here is the way an American group called Ensemble Organographia performs this work. Where did they find all these notes? Why did they remove the text? And above all, why does it sound as if it were traditional folk music, a kind of rustic dance with a strong Ottoman and modern influence? It is obviously complete misinterpretation. Now, here is the performance of this work by the Ensemble Kérylos with the Jan Jeroen Bredevold, baritone, and myself playing the transverse or loss. Even the best-known musical works from antiquity are commonly misinterpreted. Let's take, for example, the so-called Seikilos epitaph, which is written down on a 2nd century funerary stele and was discovered at the end of the 19th century. This famous musical work is not and cannot be a drinking song, as some would have you believe. It's a very intimate work about the flight of time. The same sort of problem can be found with the two great Delphic hymns to Apollo, which were composed in 128 before Christ, and were also discovered at the end of the 19th century, a few years after the Seikilos epitaph. These hymns were engraved on a marble wall of the Athenian treasury upon the Sacred Way. This means it is great sacred music, extremely majestic. The ancient Greeks did not engrave on marble and did not display in such a prestigious sanctuary the music which was played at night around the fireplace or at the local tavern. And indeed, these two hymns were performed during the Pythade, a great religious procession of the Athenians leading from Athens to Delphi. So this music has also a very strong political meaning, and this clearly appears in the text. And however, here is what you can hear from some recording called The Spirit of Socrates. And now, here is the performance by the Ensemble Kérylos with Frédéric Albou, bass baritone, Benoît Tessé playing the kithara, and myself playing the olos.
Ite piteres scopontan de Parnassian, dicarifon cleitin hymnon, catarchetenemon, pierides haini favolus Petras, naet heliconidas.
But because we know how to read ancient scores, it doesn't mean it is easy to do it. Quite the contrary. Deciphering these scores often turns out to be extremely hard, and only a few scholars are able to do it. The fact is, the papyri are very damaged, always incomplete, often shredded, the ink's faded, the handwriting is sloppy, etc. In a word, it's so difficult, it can drive you crazy, and sometimes every word, every musical note has to be fought for. For example, it took more than 2 years for Annibelis and the two specialists trained by her, Laurent Capron and myself, to decipher a papyrus kept at Yale University, the United States, which contains two hymns, obviously anonymous, to Apollo and Artemis, and the elegiac metamorphosis of a woman into a bird. Please listen to this metamorphosis performed by the mezzo-soprano of the Ensemble Kérylos, Geneviève Bousquet.
Musica Seikilos ornis algunipotes.
The same goes for a papyrus kept at the Louvre in Paris, discovered by Laurent Capron in 2004, and on which Annibelis identified the only remaining fragment of a tragedy called Medea by great Athenian playwright Carcinus. Annibelis spent several hundreds of hours to determine what exactly was written on that papyrus. And this is also what marks out the Ensemble Kérylos. Not only all the scores of the ensemble performs are authentic, but Annibelis and her team have also studied them thoroughly with renewed efforts. And this is exceptional work because it has allowed it and still allows to fix error, often major errors you can find in earlier publications. Let me show you an example that speaks for itself. Here is a papyrus kept at the University of Michigan. William Johnson, an American scholar, first published it about 15 years ago. But the way Johnson read this sign here is not correct. And the problem is this sign appears several times on this papyrus. For example, here and here again, and here again, etc. So if you play this score, reading it the way Johnson did, here is the result. Well, okay, this is a modern flute, of course, just to let you hear the melody. And now, here is the way Laurent Capron and I had fixed this error on the basis of both the drawing of the sign and ancient music theory. So, as you can see, false readings are a real stumbling block when you want to play ancient Greek and Roman music. And for example, if you want to be accurate, you can use anymore the book entitled Documents of Ancient Greek Music, published in 2001 by Martin West and Pöhlmann, because the way the two scholars read the ancient scores often proved to be wrong. The problem is that this book is the only one that is currently available about ancient scores. So when some musical groups intend to perform ancient Greek and Roman music, they can't do anything but use this book as a basis. The situation is quite simple, in fact, as you have to be not only a musician but also a philologist and papyrologist to be able to read these scores. If any of these skills is missing in your team, you have no choice but to trust someone else. But what is worse is that some musical groups want you to believe that they play what was written by West and Pöhlmann in the book I just talked about, using the name of these scholars as a scientific guarantee, while they play a music which has absolutely nothing to do with the results of West and Pöhlmann's research. This being the case, for example, of the Ensemble Organographia I mentioned earlier. In a further video, I will deal with the topic of the musical instruments played by the Ensemble Kérylos.
Benoît Tessé, Geneviève Bousquet, Nathalie Berland, l'ensemble Kérylos, ouais.